On a warm January afternoon in Los Angeles, 2017, a discovery was made in the backyard of a luxury home in Woodland Hills. A man was slumped in a chair. His blood pooled beneath him, his body savagely stabbed again and again. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong, it wasn't a random act of violence. This was personal. The victim's name: Fabio Sementilli, a beloved father, a mentor, a celebrity hairstylist, a man who seemed to have it all. But in just hours, his glamorous life would be exposed as a stage hiding betrayal, lust, and greed. Today, you're watching Romance and Blood TV, and I will take you deep into one of the most shocking betrayals in modern crime history. This is the story of Fabio Sementilli, the wife, the lover, and the brutal murder that shocked Hollywood. To understand the brutality of this crime, you must first understand who Fabio was. Born in Canada, Fabio rose from humble beginnings into the world of beauty and style. He became vice president of education for Wella, one of the biggest hair brands in the world. To hairstylists, Fabio wasn't just a corporate executive, he was a rock star. He inspired artists, mentored thousands, and gave hairstylists the confidence to chase their dreams. He was a family man too, a proud father, a husband, a man who believed in hard work, love, and loyalty. He had money, respect, and friends across the globe, but most of all, Fabio had what many men envy: stability, legacy, and a beautiful wife by his side. At least, that's what he thought. The sun was setting in Woodland Hills. Fabio's teenage daughter returned home. She walked into the backyard, and her world collapsed. Her father, the man who styled the stars, who traveled the world, who made people feel beautiful every day, was now unrecognizable. Fabio was covered in blood, slumped in a chair, brutally stabbed in his face, neck, chest, and thigh. The backyard patio, once a place for family gatherings, was now a horror scene. Detectives rushed to the home. To them, it looked like a robbery gone wrong. Drawers were pulled open. His car, a black Porsche, was missing. His luxury watch was gone. But something didn't feel right. If it was robbery, why was Fabio left in such a personal, violent state? Why stab a man so many times when you could just take his things and leave? The detectives' instincts whispered something darker. This wasn't random. Someone wanted Fabio dead, and they wanted it done savagely. What detectives didn't know yet was that the killers were already slipping away, and at the center of it all was someone Fabio trusted most. Her name was Monica Sementilli, Fabio's wife of over 2 decades. To outsiders, Monica was the perfect picture of a devoted spouse: beautiful, elegant, supportive. She stood beside Fabio at glamorous events, smiled in family photos, and lived a life most could only dream of. But behind the walls of that Woodland Hills mansion, Monica was hiding a secret that would soon turn her into one of the most hated women in true crime history. Because while Fabio was building a global career, Monica was building an affair with a man who was the complete opposite of her husband. His name was Robert Baker. Robert Louis Baker was no celebrity. He wasn't respected in his industry. He wasn't admired by thousands. He was a racquetball coach, a former adult film actor, a convicted sex offender. To the outside world, Robert Baker was a nobody. But to Monica, he became everything. Their relationship was more than an affair, it was obsession. Secret meetings, encrypted messages, dangerous promises. And together, they made a chilling plan to remove Fabio from the picture permanently. Because with Fabio gone, they wouldn't just have each other. They would have his $1.6 million life insurance payout. This wasn't just about lust. This was about money, power, freedom, and blood. As detectives searched for clues in Fabio's murder, they didn't yet realize that Monica had already set everything in motion. She had the alibi, she had the lover, and she had the plan. But like all perfect crimes, the cracks were about to show. And the first crack was in the Porsche. Detectives stood over Fabio's lifeless body. The brutal stabbing suggested rage. The missing Porsche suggested robbery. But when they stepped inside the house, they noticed something strange. Yes, drawers were opened. Yes, objects were tossed about. But the items missing were oddly specific. Not the most valuable jewelry. Not electronics. Not cash. It looked staged. And when police find a staged robbery, suspicion often turns inward. In the days after Fabio's death, Monica Sementilli cried in front of family, friends, and cameras. She wore black. She sobbed at memorials. She clutched her daughters tightly, whispering about strength and faith to the world. She was the picture of grief. But detectives noticed something. Her grief seemed rehearsed, and her answers to police carefully measured. Never too much, never too little. Detectives began asking, was Monica really a grieving widow, or was she playing a role? While Monica was performing as the heartbroken wife, she was also carrying on a secret life. Her affair with Robert Baker wasn't just casual, it was fiery, dangerous, addictive. The two exchanged encrypted messages. They planned secret meetings. They whispered about a future together, a future that didn't include Fabio. Baker was everything Fabio wasn't. Where Fabio was polished and respected, Baker was reckless, crude, and tainted with a criminal past. But Monica wasn't turned off by his flaws. She was intoxicated by them. And with Fabio's $1.6 million life insurance policy, she saw a way out, a way to trade loyalty for lust, stability for danger, a husband for a lover. Monica and Baker began plotting. First step, create the illusion of a robbery. Second step, make sure Fabio was home alone and vulnerable. Third step, eliminate him, cleanly and permanently. But Baker wasn't working alone. He had an accomplice, a shadow figure. A man named Christopher Austin. Austin would later admit that Monica wanted her husband gone, that Baker told him the widow was ready for a new life. And so, the plan was put into motion. On January 23, 2017, Fabio sat on his backyard patio, unaware that death was walking through his door. When police discovered Fabio's Porsche abandoned miles away, it became the key turning point. Inside the car, blood. And inside that blood, DNA, not Fabio's, Robert Baker's. Detectives now had proof. This wasn't a random robbery. This was a murder carried out by someone close to Monica, and when they started digging into her phone records, everything unraveled. Encrypted messages, calls, late-night meetings. The picture became clear. Monica, the grieving widow, wasn't just unlucky. She was the mastermind. Robert Baker's background only made the case more shocking. He was a former adult film actor, a convicted sex offender, a man with a trail of failed careers and questionable choices. He met Monica through racquetball, an innocent hobby that spiraled into a deadly obsession. And yet, this man, this failed athlete turned porn actor turned coach, now held the power to destroy Fabio's life. Together, Baker and Monica believed they could get away with the perfect crime. They believed detectives would buy the robbery story, but the DNA in the Porsche told another story, and soon, both Monica and her lover would find themselves staring down the justice system. As detectives prepared their case, the world watched in disbelief. The glamorous hairstylist murdered, the grieving widow accused of betrayal, the washed-up lover exposed as a killer, and a third man waiting in the shadows to be revealed. In Hour 3, we enter the heart of the investigation, the interrogations, the mounting evidence, and the moment when police finally put the pieces together, because one thing was now certain. Fabio Sementilli's murder wasn't just about blood, it was about betrayal, money, and lust. Every crime tells a story, and sometimes the smallest detail can unravel everything. For detectives investigating the brutal stabbing of Fabio Sementilli, that detail was a luxury car. Fabio's prized Porsche had vanished on the night of his death, but just days later, police found it. abandoned. At first glance, it looked like a getaway vehicle, but inside was the one thing Monica and Robert Baker never expected to leave behind. Blood. Blood that wasn't Fabio's. Blood that belonged to Robert Baker. In modern investigations, DNA is the silent witness. It doesn't lie. It doesn't forget. And in Fabio's Porsche, DNA spoke loudly. The blood in the car matched Robert Baker, Monica's secret lover. It was the evidence detectives needed. The staged robbery theory gone. Now, they had proof this was no random crime. This was murder. A murder tied directly to the man Monica was trying to keep hidden. All is circled back to Monica. Where was she at the time of Fabio's death? Monica insisted she was away, maintaining the perfect alibi, but phone records told another story. Calls to Robert Baker, encrypted messages, suspicious gaps in her timeline, and perhaps most telling of all, investigators believed she left the back door unlocked, making it easy for the killers to slip inside. Her performance as the grieving widow was crumbling. Bit by bit, her mask was falling off. But Monica and Baker weren't alone in this plot. Behind the scenes, another man was involved, Christopher Austin, a friend of Baker's, a man pulled into the conspiracy. Austin would later admit he was told Monica wanted Fabio dead. He claimed Baker recruited him, describing Monica as desperate to be free, desperate for love, desperate for money. In reality, Austin was the shadow presence. He didn't make the headlines like Baker. He didn't sit in the spotlight like Monica, but his role was critical. And when detectives uncovered him, the conspiracy widened. This wasn't just a lover's crime, it was a triangle of betrayal. To understand this case, you must understand the psychology at play. Monica, trapped in what she saw as a dull marriage, craved excitement. Baker, a man with nothing to lose, craved power and validation. Austin, the accomplice, craved belonging. Together, they created a toxic cocktail of lust, greed, and desperation. But here's the truth about conspiracies. The more people who know the secret, the harder it is to keep. By now, detectives had a staged crime scene, a Porsche with Baker's blood inside, phone records linking Monica and Baker, testimony placing Austin in the picture. Piece by piece, the puzzle was coming together. But the real challenge was proving it in court, because suspicion isn't enough. They needed motive, they needed proof of financial gain, and they needed to convince a jury that a grieving wife was, in fact, a cold-blooded mastermind. And so, the investigation shifted focus from forensics to finance, from blood to money. And that's where Monica's $1.6 million secret would finally explode into the open. In the next hour, we step into the courtroom, where grief met betrayal, where Monica's encrypted messages became weapons against her, and where prosecutors revealed the chilling words that would haunt her forever. She wanted him gone, because in the end, this case wasn't just about who killed Fabio Sementilli, it was about why. Trials are where truth and lies collide. For Fabio Sementilli, justice would be fought inside a Los Angeles courtroom. The grieving widow was now the accused mastermind. Her lover, the alleged killer, and the evidence against them, enough to turn a tragic story into a nightmare of betrayal. Every murder has a motive, and prosecutors said Monica's motive was crystal clear. Money. Fabio's life insurance policy was worth over $1.6 million. If he died, Monica stood to inherit nearly all of it. She wouldn't just gain freedom from a marriage she secretly despised, she would gain wealth. Wealth to share with Robert Baker. Wealth to start a new life. But prosecutors painted the motive as darker than that. Not just greed, not just lust, but a cold, calculated desire to erase a man who had loved her deeply. The trial introduced the world to Monica and Baker's digital love letters. Hundreds of calls, thousands of messages, some encrypted, some deleted, but many recovered. Messages filled with desire, with promises, with dreams of a future together. One message from Baker stood out like a dagger in Fabio's back. "We'll be together soon. He won't be in the way anymore." Another. "You deserve better. I'll take care of it." These weren't just whispers of an affair. They were whispers of murder. Prosecutors told a chilling story. Monica unlocked the door to her own home. Robert Baker entered with a knife. Fabio, the man who had given her everything, was stabbed again and again in a frenzy of betrayal. Then, Baker fled in Fabio's Porsche, leaving behind a trail of blood. This wasn't a burglary gone wrong. It was a conspiracy gone horribly right. And at the center of it all was Monica, the grieving widow who prosecutors claimed had orchestrated it from the shadows. Monica's attorneys painted a different picture. They insisted she had nothing to do with Fabio's murder. Yes, she was having an affair. Yes, she had been unfaithful, but infidelity does not equal murder. They argued Baker acted alone, that Monica was guilty of adultery, but not conspiracy. And they leaned hard on one narrative: that prosecutors were trying to turn a broken marriage into a crime. Then came the testimonies. Detectives described Monica's demeanor suspiciously calm after her husband's death. Family members of Fabio testified to his devotion, his generosity, his trust in Monica, and perhaps the most powerful testimony came from Christopher Austin. He told the court that Monica knew, that Monica wanted Fabio dead, that Baker confided in him about the plan. And while the defense tried to shred Austin's credibility, his words echoed like a ghost through the courtroom. When Monica finally sat before the jury, the room leaned forward. Would she cry? Would she confess? She denied everything. Her voice steady, her face a mask, but prosecutors played her recorded messages, showed the money trail, revealed the blood in the Porsche. Every tear she shed was cast as an act, every denial was painted as deception. And slowly, the jury began to see not a widow, but a black widow. After weeks of testimony, the case neared its climax. The jury would decide Monica's fate. The evidence was strong. The motive was clear. But would it be enough? Because in American courtrooms, nothing is guaranteed. The difference between freedom and life in prison often lies in the sway of a single juror. And as the final arguments rang out, one chilling phrase lingered in the air. Fabio Sementilli could not speak for himself. But the evidence, the testimonies, the betrayals all spoke in his place, and the jury listened. On the day of deliberation, the air inside the courthouse was thick with tension. The jurors had spent weeks absorbing every word, every photo, every tear. Would they see Monica Sementilli as a grieving widow, or as a mastermind murderer? After hours of deliberation, the foreperson stood, the room fell silent. And then, the words that would shatter Monica's world: guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Her face pale, her hands trembling, the mask of sorrow she wore for years gone. Robert Baker, the lover who prosecutors called the executioner, faced his own judgment. He too was convicted of first-degree murder. The Porsche, the knife, the affair, the messages. It all tied him directly to the bloody betrayal. Together, Monica and Robert had destroyed a man's life, and in turn, destroyed their own. The sentencing was as harsh as the crime. Monica Sementilli, life in prison without the possibility of parole. Robert Baker, life in prison without the possibility of parole. No freedom. No second chances, just endless years behind bars to remember the man they killed. In court, Fabio's loved ones finally had the chance to speak. His children, broken yet strong, stood before the judge. Their words pierced the silence. They spoke of a father who gave them love, encouragement, and pride. They spoke of the devastation of losing him in such a brutal way. And they spoke of the ultimate betrayal, that the woman he trusted most, their own mother, had been behind it. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even the toughest courtroom veterans felt the weight of their grief. Fabio Sementilli was not just a victim, He was a pioneer in hairstyling, a mentor who lifted others up, a husband who believed in love until it destroyed him. His name now lives on in the industry he helped shape, in the competitions he inspired, and in the memories of those who knew the warmth of his heart. The Sementilli case is not just a story of murder. It's a story of trust, betrayed, of love twisted into obsession, of greed, cloaked in passion. It's a story that asks us, how well do we really know the people closest to us? Fabio never suspected that the woman he kissed goodnight would one day orchestrate his death, and that chilling reality will forever haunt those who hear his story. This has been the story of Fabio Sementilli, a man who built beauty with his hands, a man whose kindness touched thousands, a man whose life ended at the hands of betrayal, romance, and blood, twisted together into tragedy. May his story remind us all that sometimes the greatest danger lies not outside our homes, but within them. You've been watching Romance and Blood TV. Thank you for staying with us through this journey of love, betrayal, and justice. Until next time, stay vigilant.